How's it going, guys? How are we doing? Welcome to a new video tutorial on the series of learning TypeScript. We are in the second tutorial. We're going to cover a load of things in this series, but in today's video tutorial we're going to specifically cover one of the main reasons why TypeScript actually exists. Just because of this one. So we're just gonna learn about types and the typing system behind the TypeScript and why TypeScript actually uses this type system, and we're just gonna learn, or we're just gonna go and introduce the interfaces. So make sure to go ahead and watch the last video tutorial, the getting started, if you haven't already. So yeah, we have just set up the project that we're gonna work on, and then we've did a lot of things like the introduction to the TypeScript and why you should use it, or why you should consider using this TypeScript language instead of JavaScript. So one other thing, also make sure to go ahead and check out the documentation if you really want to learn more about TypeScript or any advanced users. Anything you want to just recheck or reference to, just go ahead into the documentation, the official documentation, typescriptlanguage.org, and just go to the documentation and you can just find whatever you want to look for out there. So here we go. Make sure to go ahead and set up the project as I've said in the last video tutorial. So interfaces are basically are actually types. So the typing system of the TypeScript is you tell TypeScript which type it is. So it's like static typing language, while JavaScript is dynamically typed language. It's not statically, so you don't have to specify the type you are actually going to use a variable for, or you are going to use a variable at whenever you try to compile this code. Pretty much like other languages do, C++ or Java, they use static typing, and while Python or Ruby uses a dynamic typing system like pretty much JavaScript over here. But TypeScript introduces this typing system, or this static typing system, to make it a little bit better and to give you a little bit more control. While you still can use JavaScript right out of the box, but TypeScript give you a little bit more advanced users, and it's being actually used by a lot of teams, big teams actually, like Airbnb teams and then loads of other teams. They use TypeScript for creating their own applications. So let's just go ahead and go with the typing system. So as we have said in the last, or as we have actually introduced in the last video tutorial, we've created a simple type, call it me, and we've given it a string. So to do it type, all you're gonna need to do, so first you declare a variable as you normally do in JavaScript. Then you give it a colon. That means you are actually going to put the type for this variable. So in this case, we're just going to put a string. It's just going to be a normal string over here. And you put an equal sign in order to assign a value, or I don't know, like assign the value to this variable. So here, let's say like hello world or something. Very quickly, so hello world, and here we go. So this is the type system. It's quite simple, but in this particular case we can just ignore this one. TypeScript is smart enough in order to know that this is a string, this variable is a string, since we are actually assigning the value of it into a string. So it's like smart enough to know that this is a string. So if you can just go ahead and hover this using Visual Studio Code Initialization system, it's just gonna tell you that this is a string right out of the box. So you don't need to specify a string, but we still can do that. Well, it's just gonna help us while we read our code. Just gonna help us identify what is this and what it's not, which type we are actually using and which type we are not, and yada yada yada. It's gonna give you a lot of information about your code and how it's actually tied up and how it actually works. So as you can see, it's quite simple to declare a variable and to give it a type. Now you can have plenty of primitive types, like the types already exist in the TypeScript language or the language itself, like the string, the number, the boolean, and you know the primitive types exist pretty much on each language, on every language in the planet Earth. So let's say like there's a number in here, so you just type in a number and give it like whatever number you like decimal or an integer number. It doesn't really matter. It accepts all of them. So you can see like 50.12 or something like this. Like whatever number, as I've said, it can accept this with no problems. The last thing is the boolean. So you type in the boolean. It's not bool or something. You must type the full thing, or the full keyword boolean, in order to make that, and it takes true or false regardless what you want. So yeah, you should be familiar with this, and those are the primitive types what TypeScript actually has already built in. Also there's an array and there's an object, so as you already know, but they are not going to be that thing. Objects, you won't use them that much because objects need properties to be assigned to, and to use properties you need to create another types, or you create a custom types, and so on and so forth. So we'll cover this later on in this video. So the next thing is like custom typing, or you create your own custom types for using it on your code, for using it for the compilation time. So to create a new type, here where it comes like the interfaces. So you need to use an interface. Interface is basically you are actually going to declare a new type, and you can just use whatever you want. So declare interface, you type in the interface keyword, then you give it a name, and usually name is gonna start with a capital letter. So like camel casing, capital letter. Let's say this is gonna be like a pet. So let's declare a type for a pet, and to declare that, just open up the curly braces, and now you can just go ahead and declare the type. So as you can see, the type has like primitive types, a type. So this one is going to be an object. So object has like multiple properties, or this could be an array, or this could be whatever. So the interface, you can just go ahead and introduce an object, or do the typing, or tell Typescript this is the typing of specific objects, which you can put in like in this type, or in this interface you're actually going to create. You can put like primitive types over here. So pets, what do pets have? Like a name. So first a name, and you give it this is gonna be like a string, and as you can see here, it ends with a semicolon here rather than just using like a colon or something. But you still can use that. It's completely variable, but I really recommend going with a semicolon. And you can give it like the pets is gonna have, I don't know, something like the color of its skin or something, also a string. And you can give it, if this is like gonna be a fat pet or no, this is gonna be like a boolean, either true or false, and you can do whatever you think. So as you can see, you can declare this is like a custom type. Now we have a custom type called pet, so we can go ahead and use that right out of the box. So let's just go ahead and declare, and it's gonna be like this is my pet, and we give it the type of pet that we have just declared, and we can just assign a value to it. So since this is going to be an object, so always when you declare an interface, it's going to be an object with like a couple of properties. You can have any properties, you can give it a functions, you can give it whatever. So this just dropped in here, string, a color, and a boolean variable. Now you can just go ahead and do this right out of the box. So name, you can say Bertie or something, like a cat name. You can give it a color about white or something, and you can give it like, if this is a fat right now, let's just go with false right now. So and here we go, we have declare our variable using the type that we have created, the custom type that we have created for the pet. Now here we go, the object right now uses this one, and for some of you might ask, why would we like use this one rather than just going with the old faggy way or the old JavaScript way? We just declare an object, and then we just start assigning to it right out of the box without doing all of these things. So yeah, bear that in your mind. Using types can help you a lot while either reading through your source code, or you can just whenever you try to distribute your source code or share it with another developer or another team, they can easily go through your source code and read it through that. They can just easily understand what you're doing, why this type exists anyway, why you're using this one inside on the other one, and so on and so forth. They can understand loads of things from using this typing system. Also, what this one can protect you from is the bugs. So they can protect you from bugs. They can just help you figure out where bugs are on your source code, and they can just save the word for you or save the day for you. I know a lot of teams, and in a lot of conferences or TED Talks, talking about how Typescript saved their life by just moving their project from JavaScript to Typescript. They figure out a loads of bugs on their source code. They figure out a loads of things actually happening behind the scenes. They wouldn't notice, or they wouldn't notice if they still use JavaScript, but they moved into TypeScript, and TypeScript saved the word for them. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Just give it like a month or two, and you can go ahead and see the actual things that TypeScript gonna bring for you and save the day for you pretty much. So here we go. So we have pet. As you can see, it's quite simple to declare a custom type in here. Let's just go ahead a little bit more deeper in here, and let's just go ahead and extend a type from another type, like use inheritance in here. So we're gonna declare another interface, and this interface is gonna be a dog. So let's just go ahead and declare a dog for this one. It's just gonna extend from the pet. So the pet type, the dog is a pet pretty much, and while the dog gonna have a little bit more attributes than the pet. The pet has this generic attribute, the name, the color, and the fat, while the dog has this attribute. Alongside this attribute is going to have like another custom attribute the pet doesn't really know about. So this is what inheritance is about. Now you can just go ahead, let's say the dog is going to yelp, and the yelp is going to be a function. So you're going to use like the ES6 arrow function in here, and when like using or declaring the type of a function, you don't just go ahead and do that. If you just go ahead and hover that, it's just going to tell you that this dog yelp function is like having no parameters while it returns an object. So we don't want to return an object, we want to return a void. So void means there's no return type for this object or for this function pretty much. So this function does a thing, but it doesn't return at all. So void, or what this is what void actually mean. It doesn't, or this function doesn't gonna return. So we're just gonna like tell it that the yelp function won't return, it doesn't have parameters. If you can just go ahead and put parameters here, you can just go ahead and put parameters, and parameters pretty much need the type. So you need to specify the type of the parameter in order to the function, or in order to TypeScript compile your code correctly. So here we go, we have this one. Let's just go ahead and do another dog, and it's gonna be, I don't know, something like Jack or something. I don't care. So let's just go and name this my dog for now, and we're gonna give it like the dog type. So this is gonna inherit from the dog type, and as you can see in here, we can just put in the name. So it has this attribute, or it has this properties. Alongside this property is gonna have the yelp function. So let's just go ahead with I don't know, I can't quite figure out which dog name, or let's just go with Apollo in here. Apollo seems a really nice dog name, and with the color about, let's go with yellow color. I'm not that big guy who knows how to put colors together or something. It doesn't really actually matter. And the fat is gonna put false, so let's just go ahead and put it true in here. So, and right now, as you can see, we've got a problem here, missing type in name string. So the yelp is missing. We need to define the yelp in order to complete the declaration of our variable. So if you're just gonna leave it like this, it's gonna give us error because the dog needs, beside all of that and alongside all of these properties, it needs a function declaration. So let's go ahead and declare a function. We give it, there's gonna be like the yelp, and the yelp is gonna take a function. We're not gonna use the arrow functions because this keyword is not gonna be available on the scope of the arrow function, while it's gonna be available on the normal function declaration. And just gonna like go ahead, whenever we type in the yelp, or whenever we call the yelp method, what we want is just gonna like console log or log the name of the dog. So wahoo, whatever, I don't know what dogs do pretty much for yelping. And I'm just gonna I'm just gonna put this dog's name. So I'm just gonna put the name of the dog alongside that. So here we go. This should work pretty much for us. Now if we try to call my dog and we call a function, it's just gonna work for us pretty much with no problem. So we can just go ahead with dog, my dog, and yelp. Now we can just yelp the name of the dog. So yeah, in a quite simple way, this is what we can do for us. Now if we try to go ahead and save that, make sure to run the watch, because it's just gonna go ahead and take the code and compile it for you and put it into the app.js. If you're not actually familiar with that, make sure to go and watch the last video tutorial about getting started and setting up the environments that we're working actually on. Now we're just gonna use Node.js for running this code. You can run this code on the browser, whatever. Since it's JavaScript, we're just gonna use Node.js since we're just logging information. So it's just gonna a little bit more easier for us to use. So we can go with Node, and we can go with / distribution app.js, and the app.js should run for us. And as you can see in here, woohoo, whatever, and the name of the dog in here. In this case, this .name refers to the Apollo, and we have got this logged us into the console. So as you can see in here, it's quite simple thing, and using these things, you can just extend the dog from the pet and so on and so forth. You can do plenty of other things with it, just using interfaces, and interfaces actually pretty much are types and so on and so forth. So they are quite simple and quite powerful at the same time. You still just, if you can't quite reach out or can't quite figure out why using this typing system, why you can use the normal faggot way, just keep going with TypeScript. Try to use it for a couple of months, and you're gonna understand the power behind TypeScript and why the typing system is quite, like, you know, necessary for you to use. But if you try to use it like declare a variable without putting a type, let's say gonna like put up objects in here, and it's going to refer to an object. So as you can see, an empty object. Now if we try to add properties into this object, it's just going to give us an error with an undefined property on the object. So you can't do that. So you can try in here to put a name, and you put it like to Slampinous or something like this. As you can see, you can just go ahead into the TS lens. Error property name does not exist on the type empty curly braces, which means pretty much an empty object. So you have to give it like, you can declare an inline like types without using the interface keyword for that. So you can just give it like a name, and there's gonna be a string, and yeah, you should like put a colon in here instead of like an empty this, and you can just rather than put it in here or just put a name right over there, and it's just gonna work for you. As you can see, the error has gone, and that means everything is working pretty much fine. So as you can see, we can put an inline type declaration for our variable, for any variable. If you have like a really small variable, you can just go ahead and use this inline type, but I really recommend going with the interfaces because it can be exported over different modules and over different setups and like packages, and you can use them whatever you actually want. So yeah, the other thing you want to just know about typing system and are the generic types. So there's generic types. If you're already familiar with generic types like templates on C++ or in Java, so yeah, generic types already exist in the TypeScript language, so you can use that right out of the box, as you can see. So TypeScript uses this on the functions pretty much. So you can just declare a function, and you can say I don't know, like you can go ahead with this is my function, or convert it to a string. Let's go with convert number to string. So this function is just gonna take a number and convert it to a string, or convert it since we are generic, so convert to string. Convert any variable you pass to this function, and just gonna return to you a string. So to declare like a generic type, you put it like brackets in here, and you give it the generic type you're going to use. Most likely we're going to use a T for template, which stands for template pretty much, and you give it like curly or braces telling you that's the function, and you must give it the return type. So to declare a function, you give it return type, you use the colon at the end of the function declaration here in order to tell it what is going to be the return type. If you're just going to omit this or ignore this, it's just going to know that the return type is void, which means this function is not going to return anyway. So we want to return something, and we want to return a string. So since our function, it takes any variable and it returns a string. Now we should return either, otherwise it's just gonna give us an error, as you can see in here. So yeah, we take this one, and we should like give it the argument of type T. So we need to pass in any arguments with any type, and it's just gonna return us the string. So here what we want is return a string using the string constructor. So we can just give it argument in here, and it just this function or this constructor just gonna take any variable, either number, boolean, or whatever, and it's just gonna like convert it to a string and return the string for us. Now as you can see, this is a generic function. It's quite simple thing. Now we can just go ahead and console log this to the console, and we can give it like convert to string, and whatever, we can give it like a number like 512 points, or let's just go with 512 in here, and we can just go clear the console in here, run Node.js again, and we should probably go ahead and find objects.name is Slampinous, and yeah, let's just go ahead and get rid of that. It's just gonna give us a really awkward error. So yeah, that was just for letting you know that there is inline typing systems and stuff. And as you can see, to string, and it's just gonna have 512. To make sure that this is an actual string, not a number, we can use the type of keyword to check the type of this return or the return type of the function. So we need to make sure that this is a string and our thing is working. As you can see, it works. You can just put in here like a boolean, or not an actual boolean, you can put it like a true or something. You can save this, you can run this again, and as you can see, to string, and it's just gonna give us a string again. So that means we pass in whatever type, and it's just gonna return us a string, and whatever type means that we're gonna use a generic type. So we'll pass in a number, a string, a boolean, whatever other thing, and it's just gonna do the job for us correctly. You can just benefit from this function or from this generic typing system on the TypeScript language on many ways, actually, on a different situations on your code. So you can just have one function can do plenty of things for you, which is pretty great for us as programmers. We want to do a lot of things. So that was actually for the typing system. That was a quite simple thing, and actually very, very powerful for you. and one of the basics why TypeScript actually exists and what we mean by a typing system. So it's very, very powerful. You're gonna need it on your whole life if you tried, or if you actually decided to use TypeScript for the rest of your whole life. So yeah, we're gonna need this typing system and you need to master it. So just try and go ahead and work with this one. I don't know, do a couple of examples, try to implement some example, and it's just gonna like clear the way for you, and you can just go ahead and understand this right out of the box. So thank you guys for watching. I really do hope you guys enjoyed today's video tutorial. That was a very basic thing. In the next video tutorials, we're gonna cover more, and we're just gonna go in deep, more in the depth of the TypeScript language, and we're gonna cover more topics and hopefully in this. So thank you guys for watching again. As I've said, I will catch you all guys in the next video tutorial.